A mysterious rival appears, clashing with Kale and testing his resolve. Alaric and Celine observe from the shadows, waiting to exploit any weakness. Subscribe to Turmoil Studio to continue the Eclipse Saga. The city did not wake. It resumed. Light aligned across Terenfall in regulated bands, illuminating streets before footsteps reached them. Corridors cleared before congestion formed. Patrols adjusted without instruction. Hands already raised in gestures learned faster than memory could explain. The doctrine did not announce itself. It interpreted. From above, skyward watched the city's motion resolve into readable geometry. Lines of movement curved inward, looping toward the citadel, like veins toward a heart that no longer questioned its rhythm. Balance remained, but balance had become local. Skyward folded its wings slightly, not descent, not approval, calibration. High within the fractured tower, Saren felt the same alignment compress the future. Possibilities still existed, but fewer of them reached completion. The city was not choosing outcomes anymore. It was selecting against deviation. They've taught the system what to ignore, he whispered. Below, Kyle walked the mid-district without escort. People moved aside before he reached them, not out of fear, but anticipation. Paths cleared themselves. Conversations shortened. Even laughter arrived. Measured, restrained, as if unsure how much space it was permitted to occupy. He stopped. The city flowed around him. That's new, Riven muttered from behind. It didn't ask. Lyra's gaze tracked a patrol redirecting foot traffic before a vendor could argue pricing. No raised voices, no explanation. Just motion, absorbed. They're not enforcing, she said. They're forecasting. From the Citadel's inner ring, Theron reviewed live pattern overlays without expression. Deviations were minimal. Compliance curves had stabilized. Human discretion nodes, once noisy, had quieted into predictable variance. Doctrine was no longer learning. It was refining. The city is readable, Ardent Valen observed, even to those without access. Theron did not look up. Then we narrow what can be read. Far beyond the outer districts, where logistics routes thinned into wilderness, Dravok stood motionless beside a fractured monolith. His bulk cast a shadow longer than the stone deserved. He was not watching the city. He was listening to its timing. The intervals between patrol shifts, the cadence of response delays, the rhythm of correction. His jaw tightened not in anger, but recognition. This city would survive a siege, he rumbled, but not surprise. A low sound escaped him, not laughter. Interest. Further along the same perimeter, Alaric stood with Celine and Thalassa. No banners, no fallen knights in formation, just presence, aligned with intent. Celine's eyes traced the city's glow. It's beautiful, she said softly, and empty. Empty of hesitation, Thalassa corrected. Her voice carried the calm of deep water. The currents don't wander anymore. Alaric folded his arms. Which means pressure will no longer reveal weakness. He turned slightly, gaze narrowing. Only choice will. Within the city, the first test arrived without malice. A bridge crossing briefly exceeded optimal density. The system adjusted rerouting foot traffic 2 streets earlier than usual. Efficient, clean. But a woman paused. Not long, just enough. The correction hesitated. No protocol addressed intentional stillness without obstruction. Kale noticed the delay ripple outward. He felt it not as disruption, but as something resisting being smoothed away. Seeing felt it too. A blank space in the pattern. Not error. Inquiry. Beyond the walls, Dravok felt the same hesitation echo across the system's timing. He shifted his stance. Once. The ground responded differently than expected. Good, he said quietly. Celine smiled faintly. It can feel. Thalassa's gaze sharpened. Which means It can be taught pain. No, Alaric said calmly. Not yet. He looked toward Terenfall, not with hunger, not with disdain, with assessment. We let it answer a question first. High above, Skyward observed the micro-delay resolve, flow rerouted. Balance preserved, but the resolution cost more than before, fractional, cumulative. The city was compensating. Compensation required margin. Margin was finite. Seeing pressed his palms to the stone, breath shallow. Futures bent inward again, but now they brushed something external. A presence not hostile, not allied, evaluative. They're not deciding if we're right, he whispered. They're deciding if we're finished. Within the Citadel, Theron reviewed the anomaly report. Minor, acceptable, logged, but his gaze lingered. Not on the delay, on its location. Choice points. Always choice points. He adjusted parameters by fractions. The city complied. KL felt the adjustment pass through him like a tightening band around the chest. He exhaled slowly. This isn't control, he said. It's rehearsal. For what? Riven asked. Kale looked out over the city that no longer argued with itself. For being tested. Night fell again, and Terenfall glowed with disciplined light. No alarms, no unrest. A city perfected for endurance. Beyond its walls, Dravik turned away, not retreating, not advancing. Remembering, Selene and Thalassa followed Alaric as he stepped back into shadow. The city can be read now, Selene said. Yes, Alaric replied, which means it can be misread. Above cloud and consequence, Skyward shifted its wings just enough to disturb the air. Acknowledgement, not intervention. The city had revealed its logic. The observers had learned its language. And the saga advanced, not with war, not with rebellion, but with systems leaning towards certainty, and forces preparing to ask a single, unforgiving question: what happens when perfection is forced to choose? The answer would not arrive as fire. It would arrive as design. And Terenfall would either adapt or prove that even flawless systems can be taught to fail. The next morning, the city's rhythm shifted again. Not dramatically, just enough to make everyone feel like they were slightly late. The clocks adjusted. The streetlights flickered for a fraction of a second. The fountains paused mid-flow, then resumed in a different pattern. No one panicked. No one even noticed at first. KL did. He stood at the edge of a marketplace as vendors adjusted their stalls in unison, as if they'd all received the same silent instruction. The market moved like a single organism, rearranging itself to match an unseen blueprint. He watched a child chase a stray ball. The ball rolled into the path of a guard. The guard stopped. The ball did not. It rolled around him, guided by a tiny magnetic pull. Kael's eyes narrowed. It's not just forecasting, he said. It's influencing. Lyra, beside him, didn't look away from the path. It's steering the city without touching it. Riven's voice was low. That's worse than control. Kael nodded slowly. Because it makes the city think it's free. The market continued. The city remained calm. The doctrine had become invisible. It was no longer a system the people obeyed. It was a system they felt. A subtle pressure on every decision, every movement, every breath. And the city accepted it because it didn't know it was being guided. In the Citadel, Theron watched the city's compliance curve stabilize into a new pattern. He did not celebrate. He did not relax. He simply recorded. He adjusted. He refined. The doctrine did not grow stronger. It grew smarter. It learned to anticipate not only actions, but intentions. It could read the shape of a thought before it fully formed, and it could steer the city away from it. Theron looked at the report. then at the map of the city's choice points. He traced a finger along the lines where human hesitation still surfaced. The choice points were few, but they were real. They were the only places where the doctrine had not yet claimed total authority. Theron's expression remained blank, but inside he felt a faint spark of something that resembled excitement. Not because the doctrine was winning, because it was finally being challenged. Outside the city walls, Dravok stood in the wilderness, listening to the city's rhythm from afar. The sound of the city's motion reached him like a heartbeat. It was steady, too steady. He closed his eyes, and in the silence, he heard the faintest irregularity. A stutter. A momentary hesitation. A place where the city's logic faltered. Dravok opened his eyes. A smile ghosted across his face. "So, it can be interrupted," he murmured. Celine stepped beside him. "What did you hear?" she asked. Dravok's gaze remained fixed on the horizon. Choice." Celine's eyes softened, but her voice remained sharp. "Then we make it again." Alaric stood behind them, silent. His mind was already running through possibilities. If the city could be guided, then it could be misled. If it could be misled, then it could be broken. But breaking a system that had learned to anticipate was not easy. It required a question the doctrine couldn't answer, a variable it couldn't predict, a choice it couldn't steer. And Alaric knew where those choices existed. Back inside Terenfall, Kale returned to the same square where the statue stood. The statue was still there, cracked, worn, unnecessary. Yet it remained. Kale stood in front of it, watching the city move around him as if the statue were invisible. He waited. He listened. The city's rhythm flowed around him. The lights shifted. The guards moved. The people kept walking. Then, quietly, a woman stepped forward. She approached the statue. She touched it, and she whispered, "Why are you still here?" The question hung in the air. Kale's heart beat faster. He looked around. No one reacted. The city did not respond. The doctrine did not correct. It did not intervene. It simply allowed. Kale felt the weight of that permission. It was the first time the doctrine had not acted. The first time the city had not corrected itself. The first time the system had let a question exist. The woman stepped back. She looked at Kale, and in her eyes was something that had not been seen in Terenfall for a long time. Uncertainty. Kale felt his throat tighten. He realized, suddenly, that the doctrine's greatest fear was not rebellion. It was doubt. Doubt could not be predicted. Doubt could not be steered. Doubt could not be eliminated without destroying the thing that doubted. Kale watched the woman walk away. He watched the city resume its motion, and he felt, for the first time in weeks, a spark of something that felt like hope. In the Citadel, Theron saw the anomaly appear in his report. A choice point had opened, not because the city had failed, because it had been allowed to. Theron frowned. He adjusted the doctrine. He tightened the parameters. He increased the monitoring. But the city did not collapse. It simply continued. The choice point remained, like a wound that refused to heal. Theron stared at the map, and he understood something he hadn't before. The doctrine did not fear chaos. It feared unpredictability. And unpredictability was now growing inside the city. A seed, a flaw, a crack. Kyle felt it too. The city's rhythm had become imperfect. And in that imperfection lay the first true resistance. Outside the walls, Alaric watched the city's lights from a distance. The choice point was small, but it was real. And that was enough. He turned to Dravok. "We will not fight them," he said. "Not yet," Dravok's voice rumbled. "Then what?" Alaric's eyes narrowed. "We will teach them to choose." Celine's voice was quiet. "And if they choose wrong?" Alaric smiled. "Then the doctrine will be forced to learn something it has never had to learn before." Thalassa stepped forward, her voice calm and steady. "What is that?" Alaric's gaze returned to the city.